Hello, and welcome to the Fantasy Rewind podcast. I'm your co-host, Dylan Stoll, and I'm joined as always by my friend, Michael Whifford.
Here comes the king. Here comes the king.
So that sound is because we are moving into Return of the King. Rewatch and discussion again here, revisiting it. Looking forward to getting into this one here. Before we do, if you want to get in contact with the show, you can get at us in the DMs, comments, or tags on Instagram at Fantasy Rewind Pod or on Twitter at Fantasy Rewind. So before we jump into Return of the King as well, we have some announcements here as far as like just a quick news update here. So I'll pass this over to you, Mike, so you can kind of give us the news.
Yeah, so on the Wheel of Time front here, we have a couple of big news items that happened over the last week or couple weeks. But basically, the newest news is that Amazon has reported that the Wheel of Time series has wrapped season 2 filming. So all these, news outlets that were like, "Is the Wheel of Time coming out this month?"
No, it's not.
Or is the Wheel of Time coming out this month? Like, no, they just wrapped filming season 2. So we're probably definitely looking at the end of the year after all the editing and stuff. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they skipped this year and just went into next year.
That's what I'm predicting. Like I said, February, March 2023, that's what I'm expecting.
And I don't know, and I guess I could do some research on this, but the Lord of the Rings show, I don't know if they've already started filming for season 2, but they could also, what maybe end up happening here is they could skip a year. Mm-hmm. And then Wheel of Time could plug in, and so it's like every other year one of them's going.
With the amount of VFX they're going to have to do, would not surprise me at all if that's the way that they took it. And it'd probably be the smart thing to do because of how much you want to actually make sure that it's finished. Because what we got, could be a little bit better.
Mm-hmm. And it also makes me wonder, too, if Game of Thrones, what that timeline's going to be like. Are they going to be releasing that every year?
You mean Fire and Blood?
Limited runs. Yeah, Fire and Blood is a limited run series. Don't really know. So, going to have to look into that as well. The other bit of news here, and very exciting news, is that the Wheel of Time has cast Aola Smart as Aviendha, which was met with very mixed reactions from
divide.
the fans. Yeah, I'm excited that they have Aviendha in there.
Me too.
To be honest with you, this actress is how I always pictured her when I was reading the books. And I know there's going to be people who are going to be like, "What? You didn't read the descriptions?" But I always imagined desert people. They were always going to be. They always had a darker skin tone. They weren't like a lot of people.
They weren't desert gingers.
Yeah, they weren't a bunch of desert gingers. And I can understand both sides of the arguments here. That, how does Loyal and other people identify Rand as an Aielman if he doesn't exactly look like that? And really, there isn't going to be any kind of distinguishable features here, I don't think. So how they write themselves out of that one, I don't know.
Yeah, because Loyal instantly identified Rand because of his hair as being an Aielman. And so with him and Aviendha supposedly both being of Aiel descent, I don't know, man. But I'll say this.
I don't know
I
either. think
that Robert Jordan's description of the Aiel as kind of being more... it was not a bunch of desert gingers. It was his description. He mentioned lots of times how they were sun darkened and everything, but you could also just make some sense of it yourself, thinking about it. I told Mike that although I have reservations about the Aola Smart casting for Aviendha, I did kind of always picture the Aiel as being more Aboriginal than being more Norwegian based, as far as just making sense when you're talking about the people who would basically live without water. It would make sense for them to kind of be more dreadlocked, be more what I want to say, just be more Native American-esque with some of the rituals that they had, and the sweat tents and everything. There's so much borrowed from Native culture.
Yeah, it was definitely inspired by indigenous
Yeah.
groups. And I think too, like, even if you think about it in terms of the books, like, they could have, like, maybe that, like, red hair is specific only to the Aiel group. And they did talk about, though, too, that they had, like, blonde and other things.
They
like,
did.
brown hair, too, because at some point there probably was at least a little bit of.
There was contained diversity.
Yeah. And we know that red hair is a recessive gene anyway. So.
Right.
I mean, I'm going off into the woods with this one, but I'm excited about it. I'm excited to see what they do with her. I still have I keep coming back to it, and I have a lot of reservations about the Wheel of Time series and what they've been doing with it. And we talked a bit about it when we met up recently, but I'm.
My biggest
love the book
problems
series.
with the Wheel of Time series has nothing to do with the casting. And the Aola Smart casting, I am totally willing to give her a shot to see how she performs as Avienda. But
The actors have all been fine.
Yeah,
They've been all great. It's really just the story,
Yeah.
what they've done to it, and I think reading the Shadow and Bone book. That's what I'm reading right now. And as I'm reading it, I'm just like, oh yeah, this is I can remember what happened in the show as I'm reading this book, but the book is just adding a little bit more nuance to it. But I can remember the episodes following very closely, at least. And I'll probably go back and rewatch it, honestly.
yeah.
Because it was a really good, really well done first series, even if it is a little romancy, you know, and I don't really care. But I think about what they did, like what Netflix did with Shadow and Bone and what Amazon did with Wheel of Time, and it really is like
It's a different series.
It is. It is not a Wheel of Time adaptation. It is a TV show that is inspired by the Wheel of Time universe.
I think that's a much better way of putting it, yeah.
And I think if I have that mindset, I'll be a little bit better about it, but it just makes me so sad because what could have been.
Right.
You know? And maybe I need to probably go back and rewatch it, but at the same time I feel like all it's going to do is make me mad.
And so I want to kind of get away from
Yeah.
the Wheel of Time bashing a little bit here. Because, I mean,
I know,
we
sorry.
do love the
Going down
series
a
a
tangent.
lot as far as the book series goes. And I really want to like the show. I'm not quite there yet. I'm really hoping it turns around, but we'll see. I do want to say, though, that Mike brought up Shadow and Bone here. I read Shadow and Bone. I told Mike, please read Shadow and Bone. So he's reading Shadow and Bone now. We are going to, once he finishes, we're going to dive in and talk about that book. And then we're also going to talk about the series after that. And plus, coming up as well, there, of course, is going to be Rings of Power and see how that goes. And that also means Fire and Blood is coming.
Yep.
And right now, if I'm being honest, that is my most anticipated show because that's looking
It just the
looking
teaser
good.
trailer, which we talked about before, just looks so good. Just looks so good. And I'm gonna make you, Dylan. Even if I have to bring him with me, I'm gonna make you read the Sandman series so we can discuss that when that show comes.
See, I want to watch Sandman. I want to read Sandman. I know you are so hyped about that.
I love it. I love that series so much. Or the graphic novel so much. So I'm excited to share that with you. But we digress. Let's go ahead and get into Return of the King.
Yes,
here.
9 minutes in. If you're still here with us and wanting to hear about Return of the King, let's do it.
I have to start off here and just say that overall impressions, real fast here. One, like rewatching the movie. One, I forgot the extended edition's 4 hours or 4.5 hours. I don't remember how long it is now, but it was forever. I had to break it up because I had some schoolwork to do there, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's like 2:00, and I started this at 11. But that movie is the payoff. From all the build-up with all that character development and the fellowship and then into the Two Towers, this was the payoff. You saw so many characters just realize their full potential in this movie, and I thought that was just so rewarding this time as I was really paying attention to that. I do think there was some cheesy elements to it.
Of course.
There was some cheesy elements to it, which I didn't really like. But overall, this movie was it's fantastic. It's definitely like right up there with the Fellowship. I do think the Two Towers is my least favorite of the trilogy, which isn't saying anything because it's a great movie too.
Something has to be the lowest.
Yes, but the Return of the King is definitely up there, right with the Fellowship. I do think I still like the Fellowship just a little bit more, just because of, like we talked about, coming into that like really beautiful Middle Earth atmosphere of the Shire, and then like that transition for our characters into the start of this adventure. Like they finally got to Rivendell. Like we think we're done, and then we got to keep going, and yeah, just that whole. Sorry, we're done with the Fellowship.
We're done with the Fellowship.
Return of the King. What were your big takeaways or thoughts, overarching thoughts?
Yeah, so being honest, when I originally watched Return of the King, it was not my favorite. It was my least favorite of the trilogy. When first time I ever watched Return of the King, I was in theaters. I was like, okay, I like Two Towers a little bit more than this. What's this about? Ooh. But as I've watched it more and more, and of course with the extended editions, making it so much more complete, it's definitely overtaken Two Towers.
I don't know if you felt this way, but I've watched the extended edition for this one, and like the other two, I could tell the parts that were added in. There was only one part in this movie that I was like, I know that was added in.
See, I know what's added in for Return of the King. Like the entire Mouth of Sauron section of that was added in.
I must
some of the
have watched
scenes
this,
in the Shire.
This version so many times. Yeah. Oh, I just remember the Aragorn. The Aragorn
Palantir
scene. Yeah, the Palantir scene, and Pippin. There was a little extra added in there too with him.
Yeah, but okay, getting into overall thoughts on Return of the King for me is I did really like it. The Battle of Pelennor Fields is always one that I really look forward to. I love that fight scene. I love the sequence of events that happens. Like, there's a couple lines that I love in this movie. Like the scene where Aragorn is being tempted, and then he just looks back and he's like, "For Frodo."
Oh.
It's just like, it's instant epic. Goosebumps. Like,
yeah, it's just
so good.
So good.
Love that part. I really love the part where Frodo's like, "Smeagol, you promised. And Gollum's like, "Smeagol promised. Smeagol lied." And goes after him. Love that line. Love that part. Yeah. But the entire movie is just fantastic. I love seeing the battle there of Pelennor Fields with Éowyn coming into her own there, how she and Merry are kind of like their own little band of misfits riding into battle there where no one else wanted to take Merry with them. And Éowyn just is riding out, hand outstretched, and snatches him off the ground. It's like, "You're coming with me." And he's like, "My lady." And that part is great.
Well, him and Pippin,
they shined in this movie.
When I was talking about characters finally realizing it, all the hobbits really did. I mean, Frodo was probably the only one who started to fade, and which made so much sense,
right?
And that's why at the end he left,
right?
Because he was no longer. This was no longer a place for him. He was done growing. He had been used up really in this process. Whereas like Sam had grown as a protector and a friend. And Pippin had grown and found like honor and responsibility and doing the right thing, even though he was used to just slacking off. And Merry like standing up with people and realize like being able to like get in there and actually fight and to contribute too. All the hobbits really just grew, and I mean Aragorn as well, going from a ranger at the beginning,
denying his heritage,
anything to do with man, to like fully being a leader of men.
Like, when you see the transition from Aragorn to Elisar in the films here, after the Battle of Pelennor Fields, I feel like is when that transition happens. And to me, it's almost a completely different character. Like, the responsibility that you just see him wear, like armor, he's like, "You are, going to follow me here. I am going to do this thing. It needs to be done. I'm probably going to die, but you know what? We're marching off and telling the Lord of the Black Lands to come forth."
Yeah.
And all of that good stuff there.
We're going to kick your teeth in if you're going to kill us.
So here's a question for you. So talking...
Hold on, I just got to say, one of my favorite scenes, you talked about when Aragorn turns around and like that whole thing gave you goosebumps. at the end at his coronation, when he goes up and he's like, shaking hands and everything, when he goes to the hobbits and they bow and he's like, you bow for no man.
Yeah.
And then they all bowed. I just like, that scene there is just like, because it just gets you right in the feels. It's just like, yeah, because of what they did.
Right.
Well, specifically Frodo.
Specifically Frodo, yeah. I like, though, how when Aragorn's like, my friends, you bow to no one, and everyone bows to them, Merry and Pippin are like, yeah, that's right. I bow to no one. And it's like Sam and Frodo are the two that earned that right. Merry and Pippin, they tagged along for the ride. And I mean, like you said about Pippin taking on more responsibility, it's not in the movie here, but in the books, he becomes basically Lord of the Shire, basically Mayor of the Shire and everything. He's way less of a jokester, a prankster, like way less irresponsible in the books than he is in the movie. But you know what? Billy Boyd, he did awesome as Pippin, and I loved him as Pippin. I couldn't imagine anyone else playing Pippin.
No, not at all.
But talking about just that transition from Aragorn to Elisar there as well, one of the things I wanted to bring up with that was how when the reveal of Arwen happened there, and he just immediately just whoosh, smooched right on in there again, and it's like, oh yes, you won the battle, so now you get your prize there. I thought that it was so weird as far as how it was done.
I did too. I agree with you. When I was watching that, I was like, I know she's there, and how they're doing this seems really just silly.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're being honest. And I know it was at the time probably fine, because if you didn't watch it or if you didn't know, because you didn't know what happened to her, technically. Right. But we know, so, that's gone. But, I mean, it was probably there for that just effect for some people, and it doesn't age well, especially with rewatches.
Right.
I mean, if we want to get into some of the corny stuff as well,
let's do the corny stuff from Return of the King here.
Okay, first and foremost, I have a huge bone to pick at the Battle of Pelennor Fields, right?
Yep, yeah.
Okay.
That's what it's called.
Mess up 1,000 names here. But when they all rode up on horses, and then and then where did the horses go? They get surrounded. Where did those horses go?
Who rode up on horses?
Aragorn and...
Aragorn didn't ride up on a horse.
When they were traveling there?
Aragorn and Legolas and Gimli took the Corsair ship with the Army of the Dead.
No. Sorry, not Pelennor Fields. Sorry.
Oh, at the Black Gate.
The Mouth of Sauron, the Black Gate.
Okay.
Yeah. Apologies. Wrong battle. Yes, you're right. On that one. Sorry, I meant that battle. They all rode up to go, distract Sauron, and they rode in horses, and then all of a sudden, in between, cutting off the the mouth of Sauron's head and getting back to the people, and then when they came up again and tried to tempt him, the horses just disappeared.
You're right.
Don't know what happened to them. But they got encircled, so I guess maybe they just put him to the center and just...
Protect the horses! We don't want to walk back to Gondor!
It was just one of those things where I was like... They should have added just a little scene where it's just they're coming out, Shadowfax leads all the horses away because he's the Lord of Horses.
That makes a lot of sense.
Okay, real quick. Okay.
Yeah.
It's good. But, I was just, watching it, I was just wait. They just had horses, and now they don't. And there's... I mean, it's just one of those small things that just, come on.
See, I think it's funny, though, because we were talking about, the corniest moments from Return of the King, and that was the first one you brought up. To me...
Well, I think that was my biggest issue one.
To me,
there's a lot of the
first bit of cheese that I bring up every time I talk about this. Legolas, taking down the Oliphant, and Gimli's that still only counts as one.
Again, it's for humor.
It is.
Even the Ghost Warriors riding up on top of the elephant and dragging it. I was like, okay.
I mean, that does make sense though, because no one can touch them.
I know, but I'm just saying, and also no one can touch them, but they can get on top of things.
They can touch you. You can't touch them. It's kind of that type of situation.
I know. I'm nitpicking there. But also, talking about Éowyn and Merry. Éowyn riding, between the elephants.
Oh yeah.
Cutting it like that sword ain't doing
right. Not doing shizzle. Nothing.
Yeah. You know what I mean? I was like watching. I was like, I know it's all for that element of awesomeness, and it is cool, but like realistically, that's not. That's like a paper cut.
Yeah. Right. And I mean, the other thing I have a little bit of an issue with Eowyn fighting there is if she was really that skilled of a warrior, why was she being denied her opportunity to go and fight with this? Was it just because she was a woman? Was it because they didn't want her there so she could continue their line if anything happened?
I think that was somewhat portrayed by the king. He was like, you need to stay here and lead, And I think that was kind of what they were going for there with that. Not necessarily because she was a woman, but because, well, probably to protect her and to protect the line.
Yeah.
But they don't really specify either way.
But talking about Eowyn still, like sticking with her for a minute, the other piece that I know is always added in here is the scene at the healing grounds with her and Faramir. And so that piece there was not in the original theatrical cut there, and I'm really glad they included that in there, because at the theatrical version, you just like see them together at the very end there at Aragorn's coronation, and you're like, wait, what happened here if you hadn't read the books and didn't know they got together? But in this one here, you kind of start to see those seeds of romance being a little bit planted there, or at least them starting to talk together and be like, oh, they didn't meet. They're not just two strangers standing next to each other. It's actually meaningful that they're next to each other here.
And I think it's really interesting, though, that her character does shift so much. Mm-hmm. So after that battle, and then, like, then the healing, and then even later, it's like, okay, like, I did my bit of glory, now I'm just going to go and do what all women do and just get married. Like, I almost wanted it to be a little bit more like, almost like maybe she's, like, she had, like, a sword on her hip or something still, and, like, she's still, like...
Yeah,
I did this, and I'm still ready to.
I'm still capable of this to do this again. Yeah.
Instead of like, okay, I did it, and I proved that I could do it, and now I'm just going to go ahead and do what I was.
I don't
be a lady.
I don't think it was her hanging it up because she did what she set out to do. I think it was more she realized the horrors of war, watching her uncle getting murdered that way in front of her. Suffering the grievous injury she did by taking out the Witch King.
I wish they just added just a little bit more there, Just a little dialogue. Like, maybe her just, like, as she's healing, like, even talking with Faramir, just, like, picking up the sword and being like... And he'd be like, oh, like, did you... Like, even, like, acknowledging and, like, hey, like... I heard, like, you took out the Witch King. Like, are you planning on leading armies or anything? And she's like, no, I've seen the horrors of war. Or, like, no, I've
seen what battle offers me or something like that.
And I know it's a movie and I know I'm nitpicking here, but just a little bit more to just really iron that in and explain why. Because, that was her whole character. Like, I want glory. I want this and that. And you're right. You could definitely infer what you're saying from that, but just give a little bit of element to it. Even if it is just picking up a sword, like pulling it out for a moment, looking at it with like pain, and then just sheathing it and like putting it away.
Yeah.
Or
Makes
throwing
sense.
it away.
So getting in here into some of the questions here that you knew were coming. So what is your favorite moment of the Return of the King extended edition here?
Well, I did say before, I do love that end there where, Aragorn's says to Frodo, like, no, you bound to no man. I think all of it's really good. All of it is really good, and I could say a ton of different scenes for different reasons. I really do enjoy, though, the hobbits going back to the Shire, and I know this would be an issue with a lot of people because
of what happens,
Yeah, in the books, for those who don't know, when they do return to the Shire, it is actually not peaceful and tranquil, like nothing ever happened, like it is in the movie. In fact, Saruman had not gotten killed at that point in the books, and instead had relocated to the Shire to take it over. Yeah, Saruman and Wormtongue, which Wormtongue did end up killing him.
He did.
still, but it was just in the Shire and not.
And it was also a bunch of Hobbit archers that took out Wormtongue instead of Legolas.
Yeah. So I mean, I think to be fair, like when I read the books, even when I got to the point in like at the end where Aragorn got coronated and they were all heading back, like I was like, and then all of a sudden I got to the Battle of the Shire. I almost was like, this just seems like unnecessary, really. And I know like it is part of the books and it is built that way, but it. What did you say?
See, I like it that there is the scouring of the Shire, because to me, what that shows you is that yes, they may have like left and taken the war elsewhere, but it still reaches everywhere. There's no part of the world that is left untouched by the horrors of war. And so that's really what my takeaway is from the scouring of the Shire, is that even Paradise, which the Shire is not meant to be paradise, but it's still like a tranquil, peaceful land, even this place can see and be war and be infected by the outcomes of war.
And it does cause, the hobbits to change and adapt. And so it is an important piece of the story, by all means. But I do like going back to why I like this scene so much, I like them coming back. And it's because that really is just like, it puts the, almost like the stamp. Like, this is done. Like, the wax seal on the story, because they go at the beginning in the Green Dragon Inn, and then, at the end there, they're back. And it's just like, even though they clink their mugs together, it's not the same.
No, much more somber.
And you can tell that. And I just think that's such a great way to end that. And then you have the Grey Havens and everything else that happens, which is all really good. But it's just so satisfying. I guess that's why I really enjoyed it this time, because I've seen the entire adventure again in, like, not in one sitting, but close to, a week or so apart, and I got that really satisfying ending that I wanted.
So for
what about you?
Yeah, so for me, my favorite scene from Return of the King, I think it has to be the Battle of Pelennor Fields, just because of how great it is. In particular, the scene that I really like is when the Rohirrim arrive and march in, and it's like the pinnacle of cinematography as far as epic warfare goes. And part there, it's amazing. But not just that part of that scene, the scene when the Rohirrim think they've won, and then they hear the horns of the Oliphants and everyone from the south coming in from behind them.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh no,
and then they start
we're not done yet.
With those elephants.
Like just that shift, that tonal shift of, we took care of those orcs. What now? Oh no, there's more. Like that part, that shift there is amazing. I like that part a lot. It's definitely the Battle of Pelennor Fields is my favorite battle in the entire trilogy of Lord of the Rings here, hands down.
Nothing. Two Towers does not come close at all.
No,
and there really isn't any other battles anyway. But
true. So one thing I wanted to point out as well, just like random little tidbit here. I brought up how little Frodo talks to Legolas, and we were talking about Fellowship of the Ring. There's the scene when Frodo gets back from Mount Doom, and everyone's coming in to greet him again. And
Legolas says nothing.
Everybody gets like a Merry, Pippin, or like, you guys, except for Sam and Legolas. And it's just like, with Sam, the rationale behind that for me is like, what else is there to say? Like, you were there for me through everything. Words can't describe how much you mean to me. With Legolas, it's like, who are you?
I know. When I was watching that, and I immediately thought about what you had said before, and I was like, and it was as it was going, I was like, they were just looking at each other or whatever, and he is smiling at him, and I was just like, nothing happened to you. Like, you're gonna say anything? No? Okay. Nope. It'd be kind of awkward if you did say anything, honestly.
Yeah. But okay, so the next part I want to talk about here is, what was your least favorite part from Return of the King?
Oh, so it's a part that I actually liked quite a bit when I was watching it when I was younger. When they're going into, oh gosh, where the dead people are. What is that?
Paths of the Dead?
Yeah. That scene this time just felt, I don't know, it just felt a little weird. I guess it just didn't feel as good. Maybe it was some of the effects. I don't know. And like the skull thing afterwards, and they were like running on the skulls and all that too. I was just like, okay. I don't know. That scene was probably off for me. I would say that. But if we're going to like my specific least favorite scene, is just like, not that it didn't feel good or didn't look as well as the rest of the movie, it would definitely have to be Faramir's father eating
the tomato.
Eating the tomato is like they're going to the battle, and I know why they're doing it. It's always been an uncomfortable scene for me, which it's meant to be.
Exactly, yeah.
And so I guess like that one would probably be up there. Just like, come on, like his character again,
very
makes
punchable.
Sense. Understand why? Very punchable. Very punchable. Very honestly slappable.
Yeah,
I feel like. Just like
very staff slappable,
full like Batman meme, just like whack. What about you? What is your
so for me? I was going to say any scene Denethor's in, but that's because, like in particular, like the Pyre of Denethor. I liked that chapter in the book a lot. I thought that was an amazing chapter, but the portrayal on the screen here, it was done well. Like I don't have any problems with how it was done. But just, I don't like Denethor at all. And I know you're not supposed to. So that means Peter Jackson and the actor who played Denethor did really well because they made me not like him. But any scene he was in was always for me. With the exception of the scene where it was Two Towers, right? Where there was a scene with Boromir, Faramir, and Denethor talking by Osgiliath.
Yes.
Yeah, so I liked that scene with him in it just because of what it meant for Faramir and Boromir. But in the Return of the King, I didn't like any of the scenes with him, in particular the Pyre of Denethor scene, where he's like, I'm going to burn my son alive, and I am going to burn myself alive too, because I can.
Yeah, better to choose our own death than to wait for... And I'm just like, so what Denethor's character really represents is when you give up hope.
It does, 100%.
And I think it's so important to the story because you see, like, everyone else around him has not given up hope. There's people who are complicit with him. Yep. But he is the epitome of just giving up hope. And so it's such a dangerous thing.
I wanted to ask you as well, because I know it's very different from the books, but what are your thoughts on the confrontation between the Witch King and Gandalf?
I'm trying to remember what that was like in the books.
Basically, the Witch King did not break his staff and like send him running off like a peasant.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think they amped it up to just show the power of the Witch King.
Right.
So then when Eowyn killed him, like...
Exactly.
It's like, oh my gosh.
I think it was done, like you said, for that very reason. To just show how big of a threat he actually was. Because if he could do that to Gandalf, what could he do to a regular person?
Yeah. I don't know. It's fine. I do remember you mentioning that. I do remember when I watched this originally after having read the books in that scene, like not being particularly happy about the staff breaking. But now I understand why they did it.
Right.
It's fine.
No, again, that's something like I don't like that scene a lot, but I don't have too much of a problem with it either. I mean, I know it's different from the source material, but it's whatever. So talking about one of, in my opinion, the more underrated villains in the Lord of the Rings series here, Shelob.
Is it? Oh, yes.
So what are your thoughts on Shelob?
That scene, rewatching it, as a kid, like that was a very scary scene. And to be honest with you, I think I've definitely watched The Fellowship of the Ring a ton of times, and I've watched, actually thinking back, The Return of the King a ton of times. because I remember seeing it in theaters like 3 or 4 times actually. Different instances. But Shelob, that scene is always like, even in the books, like always kind of creepy. But I'm not big on insects anyway. But I think they did a really good job, and this was such a cool moment. One for Sam and Frodo to kind of like both have an opportunity to do some action stuff, which doesn't really happen for them too often, and really to show just how evil Gollum was to like lead them to her, which I do want to bring up. I keep bringing up some things I have issues with in the movie. There is one little thing that bugged me this time around too, and it was between Sam and Gollum. Like, Sam legit heard Smeagol Gollum say how he was planning on killing him, and then he got upset and like, you know, obviously it was like kind of like gonna hurt him or fight him or whatever, and then Frodo was like, no, stop. He's like, I heard him, Mr. Frodo. And then he's just like, almost just like, that was it. Like, oh, it's not a big deal. Like, afterwards, like, I would be sitting there like, no, he said he was going to kill us. You know, it was almost like, oh, okay, Mr. Frodo's okay with it, so we're done with that now.
Yeah, I agree with you. That was a little strange because Sam legit heard Gollum saying, "We'll take the ring from them once they're dead." He's like, "You're not going to kill me." And then Frodo's like, "No, he didn't say that." He's like, "I heard him." "No, you didn't."
Yeah.
"Okay, you're right."
Yeah, it's just kind of like, okay, like, I'm grumpy now, but like, and then like, you know, that's it with that. But Shelob, overall, the effects, like that whole scene with her was just really creepy and like, just fun.
I thought it was a really nice way to bring like a fantasy-esque monster and connect it to the real world fears, because a lot of people are afraid of spiders. So like having Shelob be this giant spider who just like preys on anybody she can get her hands on, you know, was great. And with her being so big and everything, loved it. So a couple other parts that are like right around that part of the film that I have some problem with. But I know we're bringing up like little nitpicks and everything, but I still genuinely love this movie. But the part where Frodo's captured, he's like, "Sam, they have it. They took the ring from me." Sam's like, "I beg your pardon, but it's right here." Frodo's like, "Mine, give it." "No, you can't touch it. It's my burden, not yours." So like he was cool with the Mordor people having it, but once he knew it was right in front of his face, he could not bear to have Sam carry it and not himself. Like, you even saw him kind of sigh with relief as he put it back on his neck. And to me, like, that just showed the corruption of Frodo, the power the ring has over him, even closer to Mordor here. But
which is good because at the end there, when he's right at the edge and he has it dangling, you're like, and he's just like, "No, I'm going to keep it." Like, it gives, like, there's, because he's walked all this way, he's gone all this way. Why just stop now?
Yeah.
You know?
And I think that's an underrated part, because the power of the ring gets greater the closer it gets to where it was made. Which
because it's more frantic. It's just like...
It's like, "No, you're not going to destroy me. You got to keep me. I'm shiny and pretty. I can make you invisible." But also...
Can't do much else.
The scene where Sam and Frodo are dressed up as orcs and doing their little like fight thing in there. I'm like, come on, that's that's a little bad.
I know.
But still, I mean, it's an interesting turn of events. Like, once they get to Mordor, because it's like, okay, now what? And like you said, that's when you see Frodo finally give in to temptation, become Frodo of the Nine Fingers, and all the other great songs that did not make it into the movie.
Frodo of the Nine Fingers, I love it.
You don't remember that? That was like a legit song from the books, I think.
I forgot. I have to reread the books, to be honest.
I know, I did too.
I've read The Hobbit pretty recently, but Lord of the Rings I have not reread in a long time.
Yeah.
Overall, though, definitely 2 thumbs up on it. Great. The Battle of Palomar Fields, epic. Really, like you said, one of the best fantasy battles of all time. I really can't think of one that comes even
There's
close?
one that I can think of, which I don't know if I'd really say it's as good, but it's from Game of Thrones. The battle where Jon Snow gets like buried in the bodies of people there.
Yes.
That battle was freaking
the battle
cool
of the
too.
the battle of the bees.
Yeah. Yes, the battle of the B words.
Yeah, I would agree. Like that was Game of Thrones would be probably next level there with that too. But Pelennor Fields is definitely the most epic fantasy battle in terms of that stuff going on. And really focusing on the battle, you know? A lot of times, like, I think about Star Wars probably would be like a sci-fi with some big battles, but it was never about those battles as much as it was just about...
The battles were happening, but it was like a little subset that you kind of were worried about. Like, you weren't worried about the fighter pilots fighting the TIE fighters or everything. You were worried about Luke blowing up the Death Star. And it's like that one little tiny portion there that you were focused in on. Everything else didn't matter. But for here... You saw Éomer facing down the Oliphants with his spear and like taking them out with a shot to the ear, which was pretty cool too. A little cheese, but pretty cool.
Yeah, a little cheese.
But yeah, you had everything in the battle. You saw Theoden getting murdered. You saw Éowyn and Merry stepping up, taking out the big bad Witch King. Mm-hmm. But all in all,
you got it all.
Yeah, all in all, Return of the King is more than just that battle. It's a fantastic movie. I like how, like, the discord that Aragorn and Theoden have about should we go to Gondor's aid? And Aragorn's like, yeah. And Theoden's like, nah. But then when push comes to shove, Theoden does honor the vow he had made to uphold the truce that they had if the beacons were lit. And rides to Gondor's aid there. So, like, there's so much more. It's more to me about men taking their step forward and becoming that forefront force of good in Middle-earth. And they succeed.
Yeah.
So
really nice conclusion to the whole series with all the characters and, like you said, the race of men.
Yes. Okay, so now that we have rewatched the entire Lord of the Rings Extended Edition trilogy, I have a question for you. If you could meet any of the actors from this trilogy, who would you want to meet?
That's actually fairly easy.
Me too, actually. You go first, though.
Ian McKellen?
Ian McKellen.
McKellen.
Sir Ian McKellen.
Sir Ian McKellen.
You can meet Ian McMillan. I'll meet Sir Ian McKellen.
Did you have the same person?
Yeah. Yes, 100%.
Okay. Well,
I'm meeting Gandalf.
One,
of course I'm meeting Gandalf.
Yes, I want to meet Gandalf.
All right.
Two, he has like such an extensive career.
Oh, yeah.
So like the conversations you could have about anything. Like
yes.
He's done Broadway and everything else. So yeah, and he'd be really awesome to talk with.
Who's your number two? Because here's where I'm interested if it goes in different ways.
Oh man. So I know like it would be really cool to actually hang out with Elijah Wood. Because like I don't know if you've seen the YouTube series where it's like they eat wings with different like levels of hot sauce on them.
No, I haven't.
Okay, and they like ask the person questions as they're trying these hotter and hotter wings, and it's like funny because it's almost like a form of torture. So you get some really interesting answers from them. But they did one with Elijah Wood, and he just seems like a really cool guy who would like you just be able to have some really interesting conversations with. But I would also like to do Peter Jackson.
Okay.
Just because I'd really like to know all of like the process that went into that. What are some things you had to like you wanted to add in, you couldn't, like get all the behind the scenes stuff. That would be really neat.
See,
but you said actors.
Actors.
Right?
I said actors. I guess I should have included Peter Jackson in there, but I could totally see Elijah Wood being somebody that would be cool to hang out with. Viggo Mortensen, again, Aragorn would be a really good one there. The other one that like instantly comes to mind though as well, Peter Jackson would be amazing. That'd be really cool. But I would love to hang out with Gollum himself as well. And just like
that'd be
see.
fun.
Although I feel like that would be, I feel like he probably hates people because they're always like, do the voice.
Yeah, probably.
But
I'm sure he's probably really cool.
I was gonna say Viggo would be my choice for number 2, but I think Elijah
I would have also loved to have met with Christopher Lee.
Yes, Saruman. Would have loved
Yeah.
that. He just like reading that dude's bio. Oh my god! Like,
Oh my gosh, him and Sir Ian McKellen, both
McClellan.
have McKellen. Did I say it right that time? Right,
I'm pretty sure it's McClellan.
McClellan. Oh my gosh, don't kill me, please. I'm so sorry.
I'm not positive now. You have
Sir
me doubting
Ian.
it.
And well, Sir Ian, him and Sir Ian have just had extensive careers. So
No, you
both
were
of them
right.
would-
Oh my god, I was wrong. So it is Sir Ian McKellen. Wow. Yeah. So body bag me, please. I don't know why I was putting a McClellan in there instead of McKellen. Yeah. Okay. Yes.
It's all good.
Wow.
But
All right. Well, I think we're done with Return of the King here. Did you want to announce what we're gonna do next? Because I think
No,
there was
I
a
guess we'll
special film you
Oh,
wanted us
yes.
to watch here.
yes, so we are going to. Our next one is going to be. We might do some news stuff in between or not. We'll see what happens in the fantasy world. But we are definitely going to be doing the animated Lord of the Rings. Correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Frank Bass's version, and I'm very excited because we're going to get to kind of compare that to this. And I'm not so much focused on like the animated like animation versus this. Like obviously we know the animation's probably going to lead to some laughs, just because it was done in like the 80s or 70s. I don't even
78.
know like the date. 78. Oh, look at that. But really how they did the story, like what was included, what wasn't included, because when I think back to the Hobbit version, which is the one I probably watched the most, that one did follow the book pretty closely. So
I like that one so much, actually.
but yeah, we'll be doing that, and then I think after that we may go on to, we'll have to talk, but we'll probably do Shadow and Bone after that, or we could go on to The Hobbit. We'll see. I think maybe we'll save The Hobbit for later.
Yeah, we'll save The Hobbit for later. We could do like a whole Hobbit series where we watch the animated Hobbit, but also watch the Hobbit films.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
That'd be great.
I don't actually know if it's Rankin Bass that does the Lord of the Rings thing here.
Okay. We'll have to get some information on that and talk about that when we're doing that one. Do have to say, though, thank you so much for listening. And please, if there's like something you guys want us to talk about or some reactions you have to things, please feel free to share them with us at Fantasy Rewind on Twitter, at Fantasy Rewind Pod on Instagram. Maybe one of these days we'll be able to figure out how to do like a reaction video and have it on a YouTube, but we'll have to see on that one. Yeah. Anything else, Dylan?
No, I think that's good for me. So without further ado, this is just two nerds signing off. Goodbye.
Peace.